just try not to cry. You stabilize my environment, inspired when you have my eye. My youth was consumed by vain beauty. Little did I know that vanity could masquerade the unruly. Coolly high love times, we reminisce, paint a vivid picture. Rasta come and lift her. Brethren, I don't want to see another sister get left up creek by another mister. Patience, no longer taking advantage of your innocence. Genetically superior, I had the vision this. Head ruled up my eye, I'm on my pilgrimage. History richer than the epic of Gilgamesh. We projected our broken worlds, made you a victim. Change the narrative, let us sit at your feet for wisdom. Pride, disrespect, I played my part. Now I apologize, cause deep down it hurt my heart. To the queens lost in the struggle. Yo, peace, what's going on, virtual world? It's been a minute. It's been about a month of Sundays, as they say, a month of Wednesdays. It's the Culture Podcast. Fury Styles representing. We got the Queen Luna here, the dynamic duo. We also got Flex, the producer, working behind the scenes. We got one heck of a show for you this evening. We talking about forgiveness.
We
talking about forgiveness. So as we about to get into it, I want to encourage everyone out there, like, share, subscribe. Let's see how many people we can get involved on this conversation. It's something that needs to be discussed, needs to be talked about in our communities, need to be talked out on an individual basis. Forgiveness is for everybody. This is not something that skips households, it skips people. There's things that happen on a daily basis that we either need forgiveness for or need to forgive. So, Luna, I would love to hear what you got to say about this topic of forgiveness.
Man, so tonight what we really want to do is to show people that marriage can last forever. And the only way that it can last forever is if you actually include forgiveness. But some people may say, well, what the heck is forgiveness? So Flex, the producer, being the ace boon of, and I'm checking somebody else out, right? Want to plug in our friend Daniel.
Aquaman.
But with Flex being the person that's up on the research, the one thing that he found out was psychologists generally defines forgiveness as a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance toward the person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness or not. Now, let me put this in layman's terms or give you a little visualization.
Say word, girl.
So Wayne Dyer literally focuses on forgiveness as the snake bite. He says it's not the actual snake that kills the person. It's the venom that flows through the bloodstream that kills the person. So where the snake goes and mind its business is the venom that stays on the inside of your body that people don't go to get the antidote for, that kills you. So when someone does something to you, that person goes and live their life, but it's you that is impacted by what's happening. So whether you decide to forgive or not, the question is, do you want to live or do you want to die? Which one? So tonight, we really want to focus on not just looking at forgiveness as an emotional crutch or an emotional thing, but really looking at what the heck forgiveness is and what the role. You heard that?
What the role?
What the role?
D-A-R-O-L-L.
What is the role that it plays in marriages? So before we even start that, I want to make sure you guys go ahead and like, share, subscribe. There's some people on your timeline that this may save their marriage today if they're able to actually be a part of this discussion. So go ahead, tag your friends inside of the chat and bring them into the thing. So while we're talking about forgiveness, Furious,
what's up?
Why is forgiveness even important in marriage?
Forgiveness is important in marriage. First and foremost, we're human beings, which means the perfection that we've created in our minds. That's really what it is. We create these images in our head based on titles, based on roles. I'm not going to say we made that mistake, but we've had our experience of living in roles and then realizing, hey, we're still human within that role. As we're dealing with marriage, one thing we got to realize, your desire, your goal is to be in it forever. So if you're in it forever, that means you're spending day in and day out with this person.
as you're spending day in and day out with this person is growing, this person is changing. It's not the same person that they were 5 years ago, a year ago. So there are things that they're experiencing, things they may not be able to communicate. And although it comes off and it feels a certain way, it may not necessarily mean that that's how they meant it. Yeah. But it does not take away the feelings that you have. And if you deny the feelings that you have, we talked about in the definition, resentment, vengeance. Mm-hmm. You can feel vengeance and resentment. Like, it's not just a word that you spew out. And it's not just an action. It's an actual feeling that you have. And if you deny that you're even feeling it, you can never release yourself from it. And you can even feel that way towards your own spouse. Your spouse can get on your nerves. I get on this girl's nerves at times. And there's been times she told me she's had to choose to forgive. Forgiveness is a choice. Because who knows what could hold on to that feeling lead to. So I would say, begin, that's what my reasoning or why you would need forgiveness in a marriage. Because your spouse is human. Your spouse is going to change. Your spouse is going to do things that you may not agree with every time. But if you're going to choose to be together forever, you got to forgive and then realize you need forgiveness yourself.
Man, that was deep. As you were talking, I'm thinking about people who are in a serious relationship and not necessarily married yet. But something that we learned in our marriage was the fact that in the beginning of the marriage, you're not quite one yet. Like, you bring in your own traumas, you bring in your own situations, you bring in your own things. And I think that's one thing that nobody really prepared us for, where we first had to learn how to forgive, because there was parts of young Malira that I brought into the marriage. There was parts of young Will that you brought into the marriage. And there were times when, I know people laugh, I said there's moments where I literally had to put wife to the side because wife was pissed off. But best friend was like, all right, dude, let's sit down and figure out, why does this decision continue to be made? Why is there this habit? Because just like the king up here just said, facts, becoming one is a process. We had to go through the process of learning some of the things that we wasn't honest with ourselves about, our own struggles, our own trials. For example, some people get married because they think that their spouse is going to fill a void that nobody else was able to fill. So then you come in with this expectation of, this person is not going to hurt me. So I remember one of the main things I did have to forgive with you was, I would say, out of anybody, I thought you would be the last person to hurt me. But was that appropriate to put that amount of pressure on him? And being able to have that forgiveness, because now I'm resenting you for a part of you that you didn't even realize was still a part of you. So when you're in these marriages and relationships and even friendships, it's really giving that person the opportunity to realize they shit stink. Like, sometimes you don't know. Like, if I always shit with myself every morning, I don't smell it. But imagine if somebody else or your kids, like, and our kids will tell us, if they come in, they're gonna be like, oh my God, like, you got to give people an opportunity to see the parts of them that can't continue to go on. So that's why I would say forgiveness is important. Flex, what you got to share with this conversation, King?
So Furious got me thinking as he was talking about the importance of it. Do you have to forgive someone if they didn't do anything wrong? Only your perception is that they did something wrong. Is there still a need for forgiveness?
I'm gonna put it this way: you don't have to. But the feeling that you have based on how that person's actions affected you. So that person could be oblivious completely. It's just like they mentioned with the snake bite. And even me and Luna, we could share a lot of what we have experienced. None of it was intentional. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like we woke up and was like, I'm gonna piss her off today. No, just things kind of happened and we found ourselves in that situation. And I've even kind of had to share this morning. We had a situation at the end part of last year. Mm-hmm. And my perception of it how I responded to how I was feeling is still having a ripple effect to today. It's like when you drop a pebble into a pond, you're going to get those ripple effects, and they're going to go across that lake, and they're going to expand. So if you choose not to forgive it, you could be 6 months down the line still bleeding out on people, not realizing, that your trauma is the reason that you're seeing the way that you're seeing. You might not even see it as wrong. But if you start listening to the cues, hey, this is why I'm feeling. Over this amount of time, I've noticed I'm back in this place. You really got to look at yourself and say, man, are my actions, is this person responding this way based on the energy that I'm giving out? And although I'm denying that I'm not hurt, the way I'm responding is coming off in a defensive way. And that person is clearly able to see that I'm protecting myself from something that they're doing.
I would say this, it's when it comes to this topic, and I'm looking at this person's comments, that at some point you can exhaust the person trying to control their partner's emotions and minds. So when it comes to forgiveness, the forgiveness is not even necessarily attached to that other person. It's attached to the feelings that came from it, because how you feel is how you're going to behave. So if I have this feeling, then that's when the vengeance and the resentment begin to settle in. And then now I end up closing my partner out. Now that's how infidelity come in, because I don't want to fuck with you right now. Like, I just want to deal with someone else. You're getting on my nerves. Like, the forgiveness has absolutely nothing to do with the other person. And it's not even attached to what they did. You can have a relationship where someone is always unfaithful, but their partner don't care. They know about it. They're not impacted. That partner is not going to say, oh, I need to forgive my spouse, because their perception of it is it don't matter. But then you'll have another person that if someone just happened to build a friendship with someone of an opposite sex, and your perception is, dang, I got competition, these emotions is what you're forgiving. So it's not really about trying to control your spouse and what they do, control their mind, or any of that. It's all about, I need to tap in with, how did this thing make me feel? Like I said, there's a lot of moments with us where I literally have to say, like, wife right now is hurt, but best friend knows your history. Best friend knows your trauma. Best friend knows why you do what you do. So best friend gonna sit with you. Wife gonna deal with her hurt by herself, and I'm gonna have to forgive you by myself. That's not something that you got to deal with, because again, it goes back to, if you are in a healthy relationship, you should know that neither one of your intention is to hurt the other person. I'm going to give you an example, because we real raw, right? Our marriage is so dope that when I had a moment, like he said, we had a situation last year where I realized that I was starting to enjoy the attention of other men. I came to my husband before it went anywhere, and I said, yo, babe, I don't like what I'm about to tell you, but I'm realizing something's off because somebody else got my attention. You should be able to have that level of relationship where I had to respect me telling him that might have hurt him, and now he has to deal with his own healing and forgiveness. And I'm not telling you that to say, oh, I'm going to go do these things, but we have a relationship that is good enough that I can come to you so that you know I'm not trying to be malicious. I'm not trying to break us down. And I know you're going to have your hurt and pain related to this. And I had to do the same thing in the beginning of our marriage. So it really goes back to communication. It goes back to knowing your spouse's intention. So when you are forgiving, it's not forgiving in the sense of, I have a horrible spouse and they did something wrong to me. It's more of, I'm forgiving you because what you did made me feel this way, and I got to deal with this feeling. And then we'll come back to the table knowing our intention was to do forever. So we need to take a step aside so then we can come back and do this thing forever.
Yeah. You know what you got me thinking? At the same time, I got 2 points I want to address. One, I know people that will act like they're hurt because they like the special attention that comes with needing forgiveness.
Just about to be.
Really? Okay, so I want to hit that one. so let's go ahead and talk about that one. Then I hit my other point here in a minute.
Dale, I was going to mention Honesty. You got to be honest. Reason being, you can somewhat fall in love with the attention that you get from being hurt.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a spouse that wants to make things right. So you have some people that could be so dead on the inside that once this happens, the fact that they now feel something, what's the word we say? It feeds them. What's the word we use?
Oh, it serves them.
Serves them. Yes, the pain serves them. It's almost like a leech. You know, it has a reverse effect. You're starting to feel like, although it hurts, it's like, snap, I feel something now. Like I feel something a little bit more than any mundane feeling. So now you're starting to live in this feeling because it's starting to gain a reaction. It's starting to gain some type of traction that you didn't have at first. It's like a Jedi mind trick. Now you got this power, and it's like, man, I could use this to manipulate. I could use it to gain what I want. And because it happened on a bad note, it's something that I can hold on to. You got to be honest with that. Because some people aren't. They'll sit there and hold right onto it, and they'll be having that woe is me story for the rest of their life. Meanwhile, again, that situation that boiled over, you done shut your partner out so much because they're trying, but now you're projecting.
Yeah.
Because what happens, you feel that pain and you start to project that pain. That's what I was doing. That's what I was feeling. A lot of what I was feeling was stuff from the beginning of our relationship. The queen had forgiven me for it. And it was like, man, is this how it was? Like, is this what she was forgiving for? You know, and just the feelings. That could bring guilt. You know, you haven't dealing with those undealt with feelings, especially if you're trying to be real with your partner. Now, you got some people that's cold-hearted. You know, they'll be able to walk in it and it's nothing. But then you have some, it's like, man, I'm actually tired of feeling like this. Why am I always upset? Why is everything causing me to be mad? Is there something that I'm holding on to that I need to let go? So that's where I would go as far as holding on to that pain and being able to use it. All that's dealing with projection.
That's good.
Man, as he was talking, you know, one thing that I want for tonight for people to understand is not that we're coming up here and we're condoning people cheating or being, you know, unfaithful or stepping outside their marriage. It's more of acknowledging that when those moments happen and when those triggers, because you are human, happen, have those conversations with your spouse. You know, mine was later on in our marriage and his was in the beginning, right? And as he said, like, I forgave over and over and over again, but even with the forgiving over and over and over again, it still don't take away sometimes that resentment that you may have. Because again, when my situation happened, as he was saying, he's projecting because some of the things that he did is like, well, dang, is she doing that? Is she doing that? And although in my mind, I'm like, dude, I told you when it first started, nothing else happened. I'm just telling you, this is how I feel, and I don't want to get to that point. So it's being able to have those real conversations of, nigga, we human. Like, that's the reality. Like, just because you married, don't turn off what other people are doing. Using your trauma to manipulate people to get your can wear a person down. Absolutely. Again, it goes back to one thing I say that I would appreciate and why we can forgive the way that we have is before we got married, both my husband and I told each other our traumas, and both of our traumas was attached to sexual traumas. So if you're in this relationship and there's sexual traumas that is happening and occurring, it don't just go away now that you're married. Mm-hmm. So for us, it was because I know your trauma. And that's why I keep saying there's moments where wife was hurt. Wife was like, yo, get out the house. But best friend was like, okay, I know where this is coming from. Let's actually sit down and talk about it. And now 8 years later is the most amazing thing that we could have ever done together was for us to really kind of just have that conversation. Because again, you don't want to literally, you don't want to cut your spouse out. Like, that's the thing. Like, people got to realize a marriage don't make you perfect. It don't mean that now you're never going to do anything. You're never going to have interactions that may be a little iffy. That's going to come. It's all about, am I going to keep my spouse out of this and then it spiral into something it don't need to? Or am I going to have this conversation with my spouse so then they can forgive me for getting in this circumstance in the first place? And then we can get it to a point where now that person's not feeling a void that my spouse should have been showing up in. So that is something that I want to talk about. And I see we got this dope comment from Jamel. What's up, King? Y'all make sure y'all get turned with his stuff, y'all. So he says, taking responsibility. Temptation is a human thing. If I am failing and my spouse cheats, I can hold her responsible for her actions. However, I also have some responsibility to take as well. Walmart can't get mad at Target for selling eggs when they don't have any. That is so powerful. And I feel like that's really what we had to learn. It was when this situation occurred, whether the beginning of our marriage where it was more on his side, or at this point of our marriage where it was more on me, we both had to sit down and say, how did we get here? What was going on? And I want to speak to the ladies. Listen, and my husband probably gonna laugh. When my situation happened, I literally was like, yo, we got married when I was 21 years old. I had just graduated from college. And I said, I never had a whole phase. So for me, I now got kids that's getting on my nerves. I got this brand new job, new body, and I got this spouse that I've had now for, it was 7 years at the time. I am going through my not midlife crisis, but you start to think, what am I missing out on? What's going on? What's happening? And then when you get to that point, a lot of the times people don't want to have that conversation with their spouse because they're afraid that they're going to hurt their spouse. I'm telling you, I know I hurt you and I hurt him, but I'm like, no, but I need to have this conversation with you so that you can see that I am fully invested. And then now he was able to say, you know what? I do take responsibility from some of this stuff. Yep, it was a midlife crisis. It's okay, Jamil. I can be honest.
You're not excusing, again, anyone from doing infidelity. You're saying, let's look at both sides and see, like, are there contributing factors from the other person as well? Not excusing, but hey, I want to address that if there is something on the other side that maybe led to the thoughts or the situation. Am I understanding that right?
And I'll give you a disclaimer. Like, nothing that we did was like full blown out adultery or we didn't have an outside relationship. It was more of the feeling of someone else giving us attention or filling a void. And once we realized that, then we had the conversation so that it wouldn't go to infidelity or us having other external relationships. I think that's where we fail. Yeah. People are afraid to admit, I actually like talking to this person. It doesn't mean I'm about to lose and leave my family. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means like, hey, yo, right now I'm realizing that I'm enjoying this attention. I should be okay enough to come to my spouse and say, yo, something's up, because right now the temperature is saying this over here feels a little lukewarm and I'm hot over here. We need to figure out why I'm hot over here and not this place. So it's not about excusing it. It's not about saying, you know, go and cheat or none of that. It's more of when you are in these marriages, be open and honest with your significant other when you begin to feel things shift. When I begin to feel it shift, we should have a friendship enough for me to come to you and say, this is how I'm feeling right now, and I don't like it because I want forever with you. Can we sit down and talk about where we are? Where did it change? What was going on? And now I have to give you the opportunity where I had to let him feel his feels and take his time to forgive me for what my thoughts or whatever made him feel. Same thing at the beginning of the marriage. He had to give me time to forgive him for some of his conversations and actions. It's not about excusing. It's more about having that open line of communication that's going to save your marriage in the long run.
And I like what Jamel said. He says cheating is wrong. However, temptation is human. We can't front like lack doesn't create desire. Then he comes and followed it up with this comment right here. He says, remove water and thirst will increase. He said, that's all he going to say about that. And, you know, it might not be the best sounding analogy, but it's some truth to that right there. Here you go. Look, come on. What do you
read
say?
that one? Go ahead, baby.
And partners need to be able to talk about unmet needs, but saying I only watch porn because you wasn't giving it to me. Why wasn't she or he giving it to you? Perhaps you wasn't fulfilling your emotionally, and therefore a disconnect was created. So it becomes a crazy cycle.
I'm gonna let you take that one, baby.
I will start with this. You have to be able to detach. And what I mean by detach, we can get so vested. And what I mean vested is like we lose ourselves and our spouses, that we forget to tend to ourselves. And in forgetting to tend to ourselves, we then are able to pour into our spouse, our significant other. So you have to be able to live. Part of being in a marriage is being able to pour out, and to be able to pour out, that means you have to be filled. And a lot of, especially our generation, one thing I've learned is a lot of us have given ourselves away. And what I mean by giving ourselves away, we've lost ourselves, thinking that that's exactly what it takes to be in a marriage. Hence why a lot of people that we've known have found themselves on that brink. And it's like they get to that point and say, I lost me along the way. So before you can even be that which you need for your spouse, you have to be able to pour in and be there for yourself. And that's really what the, not outside relationships, but having those friendships, having those, that communication externally is about, those connections, that pour. We had a moment, we always had these moments. We had a moment and it took a while, but I got what she meant. Lyra said, babe, I love you, but there are times where it's tiring that you're the only person I can rely on, or that you're the only person that I have that communication with. And I really got it. Like at one point, I probably would have been offended, but I was like, you know what? I'm not the only person here on the planet. We have connections outside of each other. And to be able to have that, especially in that safe place, is needed, is necessary. Because then we're able to still bring in the same information, that same energy. We're light. We're not dumping out all negativity on our spouses, but we're able to, again, share that information. And when we come together, it's like, hey, what's up, baby? What's up, girl? And then dealing with the, he mentioned about the pornography, but then watching it. You have to be honest. I'm at a point period in my life, where my drive is not as high as it was at my 18s going on mid 20s. I'm going into my 30s, about to close to mid 30s. And it's somewhat plateauing. That was something I had to be honest about. Reason being, it was almost showing signs of not being interested. And that's been the furthest from the case. But, we deal with things internally. And again, if we don't express it, that could then lead to my spiraling. Again, we're not communicating, when the reality is it could be something perfectly normal if we speak on it. But then you have to communicate with your spouse, and your spouse has to adjust. And y'all have to come to a mutual point. Because in both cases, both have to be happy in it as well. But you can't abstain and expect the partner to be perfectly fine, and so on and so forth. So all of that goes back to communication as well.
Yeah, that's good, man.
I would say, like, as you were talking, it made me really think, and I was sitting here looking at the different comments. One thing that I would say that we have done well is communication. And in the moments where we didn't communicate, that's when the other person's feelings was hurt. So for us is now, and he will tell you, y'all think I'm put together, y'all. I'm real raw. And when I say things, it just kind of comes out. And there is times where I do have to share my needs. I do have to, like I tell people, especially when I'm working with my clients, I said the biggest arguments happen because of lack of expressed expectations. You have this expectation of your spouse, but you didn't communicate it. So like what he was saying, is not like I need external people outside of our marriage intimately. It's more of, I want my husband to be my safe place. I don't want that when I come to you, you're the only person I have. So that means you're hearing all the junk that's going on in my day. So then now, where's the peace? Where's the happiness? Where's the joy? It's nowhere, because all I got to do is to dump on you. So we had to like learn, like, it's okay to have those external supports. But then what do you do when those external supports hurt you? And then now you're back together. And that's why forgiveness is going to be the biggest thing, because if you're all you got, right, and there's nobody else outside of your spouse, it's going to be things I'm going to say that you're going to have to forgive me for, and vice versa. There's times where you may be short and I got to be like, okay, what type of day was he having? Because that's not normally how he is. And then by the time we calm down, he'll tell you. I come to him and I'll be like, yo, I didn't like how you did that, whether that was with me or with the kids. Like, you're going to have to figure that out. I don't know what you were doing, what was up. Like, being able to really have that conversation. And if it is an unmet need, I would tell spouses, listen, like, if your spouse grows the balls literally to tell you, like, yo, this is an unmet need of mine and I need you to show up in this way, listen. Because at the end of the day, there's so many people that once their kids grow older and are empty nesters, they divorce each other because, yeah, you've been together 20, 30 years, but you ain't listened to nothing that I told you. And it goes beyond forgiveness at this point. It just goes beyond, I don't know you and I don't want to deal with you. So when it comes to forgiveness, y'all, the one thing I want to talk about before we get into the next thing, which is how many times should you forgive? And we'll do that in a moment. But I really want you guys to take away, communication in your relationship is everything. When you feel a shift before it gets out of hand, talk to your spouse, but y'all have to have an agreement before that conversation that if I notice that there's a shift or a change, no matter how uncomfortable this conversation has to be, we're going to have it for us to last forever. 2, give your spouse an opportunity to feel what they feel. Of course, if I'm telling you that I like somebody or I like somebody else's attention, you're going to be mad because they're not you. I got to respect the time that it takes for you to deal with that, and vice versa. You know, if I'm mad because I see a text message or a conversation that I feel was inappropriate, you got to give me time. And listen, we're going to talk about this 77 times 7. But if you got to give me time to process that. But once I've processed it, the mistake that most people do is they don't do shit about it. For us, no, boo, if we gonna do this forever, and this has always been our conversation, I would rather us divorce being friends than us not try to fix it to do forever. So for us, we always choose forever. So if it takes us 2 weeks to get over our feelings, we're having a conversation every night. You ready to talk? You ready to talk? And he'll look at me and don't say nothing. I'm like, all right, he ain't ready to talk. Next day, you ready to talk? And when you're ready, we'll do that. So that's what I got to leave y'all before we go into this next thing here.
Oh, so we about to go into this commercial. We about to head over to this commercial break. We about halfway through. Our desire is that you are gaining some nuggets, some information. Forgiveness is for self. So that's what we're going to lead into as we head into our commercial. Let's go, Flex.
M. Green Enterprises, LLC, the home of Malira Green, your confidence coach. Malira Green is a licensed clinical social worker who serves as a psychotherapist, Reiki master, and transformative speaker. She is striving to provide the world with preventative services to lower the number of individuals in mental health facilities while helping people grow from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Malira is ready to help the humans of the world find their best selves. Please be sure to check out www.maliratransforms.com because Malira is ready to transform with you.
Malira, you transform, baby. You like the Optimus Prime. Yes, Optimus Prime of the mental health world. Definitely reach out. She got the Metamorphosis experience, a 6-week program. Hands-on, it's going to transform you. It's going to change you. A lot of other things, keynote speaking, you name it. The queen is there for you. So be sure to reach out. And we about to go into our second portion. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. Let your peoples know this is what they want to be talking about. We know what forgiveness isn't. Forgiveness isn't this warm, fuzzy feeling. You pissed off, you mad, and you, oh, I forgive you. It's not that. The reality is, what forgiveness is, you got to feel it first. It's not something you could just speak. It's not something you can say. And the reality is, people that have truly forgiven know what it feels like. They know the process. They know it's somewhat grueling to get back to that level of homeostasis where you're not replaying what that person did. Because again, as you're replaying it, it's not actually happening. It's just repeating in your mind. And as you repeat that in your mind, you somewhat re-traumatize yourself. So once you're able to work through that, understand that you're not your mind, you can separate from your thoughts. And you say, man, I choose to get rid, of those feelings. Like I say, you got to acknowledge the feelings first. So in acknowledging the feelings, we're going to see why forgiveness is necessary. We're going to go to the scriptures. So Luna, let's take them there. Let's see what we got.
Yeah. So in Matthew, there's a parable of the unforgiven debtor. And one thing that I want people to understand is that when you do things that is unintentional, it still doesn't mean that there's no debt collected. For example, we all hopefully should have like an emergency credit card. And when life happens, you use this emergency credit card. You're not thinking about nothing else outside the fact this bill needs to be paid, this thing needs to be done. And you function out of your animalistic ways. But then there's a debt that is accumulated with it. So sometimes our thinking or our decisions accumulate this debt. So when we go to Matthew 18, verse 21, it starts out and it says, then Peter came to him and asked, Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me 7 times? No, not 7 times, Jesus replied, but 70 times 7. And the thing that really stands out for me is the fact that when I read this, when it comes to a marriage, in order for you to really forgive your spouse 70 something times, you have to be able to have that conversation. One thing about our marriage that I'm so grateful for is even though in those moments where we had to navigate spaces where one of our feelings was hurt, we took on the navigating of the spaces. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning of our marriage for the first, 3 years, there was a lot of forgiveness that had to be done on my part towards him and some of his decisions. But I also had to realize that in every behavior, there's a reason why it happened. People honestly don't just wake up and want to be crappy partners. Like if you're that person, then this is not the show for you. But for people who genuinely say, I do, and want it to work, you're not purposefully going out there trying to hurt your spouse. It takes a time where I remember, I think it was the last time we had a situation related to him and his decisions. And I was pregnant with our son. We were sitting outside of Yargo. So shameless plug of one of the best vegan restaurants ever in the Hampton Roads area. And we were sitting outside this restaurant. And I remember looking at him and I said, listen, me being your best friend, know that you are used to temporary, but baby, I'm permanent. So if you want to keep treating me as temporary and not permanent, I will be okay with both of our kids by myself. And I literally had to look at him in that way. It did not mean that I wasn't going to forgive him. It just meant at a certain point of time, this is strike number 3. Sweetheart, what do you want to do and where are we going to go? And as I'm reading the scripture, that's really what I see. It's not about excusing what that person has done. It's not about making excuses. It's not about, giving them a get out of jail free card. No, it's about saying, listen, I am acknowledging that there's a reason for said behavior that you got going on. But now I'm going to take the choice to say, me forgiving you is also me choosing that you're not going to hurt me in this way again. So now we need to sit down and actually look at, am I temporary or am I permanent? And there's some people that is hurting their spouses because they're used to temporary situations and they're treating a permanent marriage like it's temporary because we just have this choice to separate and divorce. For us, that was never really a choice. Like, we've discussed it in the sense of, if we ever find it where it's literally going to kill one of us or take us out of our zone, then okay, we'll talk about it. But it's been more of like, yo, when things is happening, I'm gonna forgive you this 7 times 70, because when I do that, it allows for me to now see the human side of you. And before I respond out of my emotions, I gotta see the why I even think you did it. So at least if I have that in my mind, now we can have an actual conversation and you can correct me from my assumptions. So it's giving yourself that opportunity for your spouse to even say, this is what I'm assuming is what's going on. Is this true? And they can say yay or nay. Same thing with my situation. Like, he could have assumed that I chose whoever I was talking to for this reason. It was like, no, dude, like, I'm going through my own little mindset of like, yo, who am I? What's going on? This has absolutely nothing to do with you. But I had to create that space. So when you hear that, do you believe people should forgive people 7 times 70?
I think so. It boils back down to, why are you together? I think this would be a total different situation if our intentions weren't what they are. That's why they say all is fair in love and war. You know, you can't control your partner. This is where trust comes in. You know, you have to trust that your spouse is genuinely there, you know, for that purpose, for that reason. It took time. You know, it took time for myself. It took time to grow up and even realize, you know, what I was doing, where I was, the mindset. And that's what a lot of us are dealing with. A lot of us, again, we get married and we're thinking that it's going to switch and change everything, when you're just really bringing in everything that you had originally and you're now mixing it. You ever put
Good point.
like eggs and butter and bananas and then try to make a smoothie out of it? Like, it doesn't make it healthy. It doesn't make it taste good. It just makes an extremely nasty, congested smoothie. And that's what happens when people come together in their marriages, especially if they have unresolved things that they think is just going to magically get better. You then come together with this huge mess.
Yeah.
And if you don't have maturity, you don't realize that your mess could be fixed. So you don't put the attention on yourself to fix that what could be wrong. You're always pointing fingers. So that 7 times 70 kind of goes to self too. It's like you realize, man, just as this person is human, I'm human. I done forgave myself 400 times. The creator of the universe done forgave me 300-400 times. Maybe I should just extend that exact same grace.
That's
because
good.
I know in myself, it's not doing it to be spiteful. Maybe this person was not trying to be spiteful either.
Yeah.
And
So-
I think it takes a mature. Go ahead.
So just a couple points about that 7 times 70, just to add on, build on what y'all talk about. I think also it speaks more to the climate that we create, you know, and y'all was saying this, and I'm just saying it in a different way. We hear commitment, and we're thinking commitment means that we're just going to stay together. Commitment is the climate that I create that makes you desire to stay there. And I think sometimes we get so focused on, hey, we're together, you're my wife, you're my husband, that we begin to almost feel like we possess each other, and it becomes a burden. And at 70 times 70, if I know that the expectation is that my spouse or my mate is going to give me that level of forgiveness, there's also my responsibility to honor that and respect that and cherish that level of commitment that she's showing to the relationship. So that's one part. And the other one, like I know you said you don't want to hit it because there's another show saying that people that intentionally hurt people. I think that's important to probably even discuss here, because some people wondering, like, should I forgive this person that's hurt me over and over? So it can sound counterintuitive to the 77 times 70, but there are some real life people out there that are intentionally using the forgiving heart of their mate as a reason to continue to hurt them. And I don't know if y'all want to touch that just briefly. I know we kind of running on the time, but I think there's some people that would really like to know, like, when is enough enough?
So I think it honestly goes back to the intention. Like when you are together in this relationship, what is your intention? We joke around all the time because our definition of marriage is different than the definition of marriage of the world. Now, don't get me wrong, you do need that certificate, you know, in order to be on people insurance and all that great jazz. But we believe that just like in the Bible times, marriage and a wedding was when you consummated, you came out and you showed a blanket. So let's just say that we were married on night one. And and during those moments, right, we had set the intention that we were going to do this thing forever. And for me to do this forever, I'm not going to go anywhere hurting you. It's when those intentions are not set. So if you are in a relationship, that 70 times 7 is based off the intention of said relationship. If that person's primary intention is to hurt you, baby, then you're going to feel that this person is here to hurt me. So why would I continue to forgive this person whose intention is not pure in the first place? And that's why I tell people, like, when we're out here and we're dating, even though I joke around, I say I miss my whole phase, I will not go back to that because it's trash, you know? So at the end of the day, it's really being able to say, what is my end goal here? Is this person really trying to love me? Or even when we read this comment that somebody put up here, it says sometimes a person can try to love someone enough to heal their past hurts and traumas that it end up damaging you, and you're at the brunt of the emotion and mental abuse. So for us, let's even talk about our situation, right? In the beginning, we both knew we came in with trauma, but we also knew that we came in as kids. So it also comes to, are you willing to grow with your spouse as well? Because sometimes it's not even about a person being malicious. Sometimes it's the maturity level of where y'all started. So in the beginning of our marriage, there was a lot of past traumas and hurts that I would say that I tried to feel, but I could not do that. But when it came to that point, like I said, we had to have that conversation of, dude, I'm permanent. I'm not temporary. Which one you want me to be? That was the moment that I had my aha moment to say, I can't cover those things for you. The same thing with him. He can't cover my experiences for me. So I really believe if someone is genuinely hurting you, it's not about forgiving them 70 times and giving them chance after chance. This forgiveness that we're talking about is if my intention is forever and my spouse I know has no malicious bone in their body, I'm going to give you that grace in the same way that God gives me that grace. But if I'm in a relationship with someone that I know their only purpose is to tear me down, not build me up, destroy me, beat me, rape me, whatever it is that you're experiencing, that forgiveness don't go out of the window, but it don't got to be 70 times.
Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes it could show up as trauma bond. You know, the person's past can be so hurtful and damaging to them that they latch on to someone for what they're lacking and not. So I need you to feed me, and I'm not looking to pour anything into a relationship. Now it can become that what I talked about earlier, where they're actually in their mind possessing you. Like you are here for a sole purpose, and that purpose is to be my husband or to be my wife and to feed me and what I'm lacking. You know, and you see it a lot of people when they have faced abandonment in their younger years, or you know, whether intentionally or say the loss of a parent from an unfortunate accident. And, you know, when they finally, what Furious talked about earlier, when they finally get that feeling, they were so dead when they finally get that feeling, it's like I'm holding on to dear life. And, you know, it can be exactly what you're saying. And it took even that or more malicious when, man, there's some bad people out there. You know, you talk about the world of behavior disorders, you know, there's some people that are real life latched on to people just to, you know, benefit from that connection and not to be a benefit.
You know, kind of speaking on that, it's one of the questions that you got, or I would even say kind of just statements. You can forgive and at the same time choose to end relationship, friendship, partnership. That forgiveness does not mean life continues on as usual. Again, you're setting yourself go based on that statement we read at the beginning. You're setting yourself free of the feelings and emotions that come from what said person has done, in that response. So you can say, I forgive you. But again, just as Malara said, when we had that conversation in the vehicle, I forgive you. But it's a decision got to be made today. And if that decision is genuinely not going to be in line with what we decided to do, then we ought to figure out what's going to be our next step. Because then you'll wind up putting yourself back in that bondage. And then you'll have to forgive yourself. So although you're forgiving everyone else, you're really not forgiving, because now you're still holding on to it and beating yourself up, which is then in turn killing you from the inside out. That manifests, that turns into depression, that turns into cancers. All of that actually manifests and materializes within your body. So, you can forgive and keep going. You can forgive and move. That does not excuse, and that does not mean you got to bring that person with you. But it could just be a severing of what was there. I forgive you. Be gone. Live your life. I'm going to go do my thing. So, yeah.
Wow.
Man. So we're talking about what forgiveness is and what forgiveness isn't. Forgiveness is literally you taking control over the emotions that you feel related to a specific situation. That's really it. I'm going to forgive you because of how this made me feel. I don't want to live with this feeling, so I'm going to forgive you for that. But it doesn't mean that I have to forget, or like you said, that I got to take you with me.
Yeah.
But if I have a healthy relationship, like I'm so grateful that we do. If these things are happening, not only am I going to take a moment to forgive you, but I'm going to take a moment to talk with you so then I don't have to forgive you for the same thing again. And then if we do have to get to this point, you got to figure out whether or not you're going to continue to do this or not do this. Yeah. So forgiveness is not doing something repetitively because you know that your spouse is going to forgive you. Forgiveness is really your part of it. If you're the reason that caused it, your part of it, you should repent from it. Like literally turn away, and not even like Christian repent, but like literally, if you know that what you did impacted your spouse in such a way, it's your responsibility to not do that thing anymore, or figure out what caused you to do it so you can heal from that. And then once we do that, then we'll begin to have more successful marriages, more marriages where infidelity is no longer the cop-out, because I talk to you about my human experience of, and I joke around all the time. I'll be like, man, babe, that girl got a fat ass. And we'll laugh, but it's like, I'm human. I see it. You see it. Laugh with me, joke with me. Like when you actually have that human experience with your spouse, it makes forgiveness even more easier, because that person is going to be willing to change because you're that important to them.
Yeah. And I'll add too about the other piece of the forgiveness is you know what? I'm gonna say that for my parting thoughts. I know we short on time, so let's go ahead and move. Okay. Yeah, I said.
Oh yeah. Well, we got one more commercial break we're gonna head into, and then we're gonna go ahead and bring this ship in.
No, let's go ahead and skip, because we're short on time, so we'll go ahead and
sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. Skip that one.
So this is what I want to say. This is what I want to give. I talked about detaching. Detaching kind of goes hand in hand with trust. You got to get to your point where you trust your spouse to live their life and know that they're living their life in respect to the bond that you have. Because once you're then able to give that trust, you're going to find yourself with a whole lot of time to live your life, because you're not then spending your time wondering about what your significant other's doing. You're not wrecking your brain, driving yourself crazy, feeling these emotions that you're bringing upon yourself. Yeah. And that's what I really want us to do. We realize we replay these thoughts and we're putting ourselves in there. So we forgive and we let it go and we detach, so we can then give ourselves the permission to live the life that we need to live. Because when we're choosing to be unforgiving, we're denying ourselves the right to live. Because we're allowing that person to live in our minds.
And just to amplify that, and I put that in the question that forgiveness is not a feeling. And what I was specifically meaning, like it's a choice. That don't mean it's going to feel good. And I think eventually it will bring about, emotions of joy and happiness. And that's from experience. When I'm able to forgive people that done some things, it did make me feel good eventually. But what I want people to understand that it's not a light switch as far as how you feel, but the choice to forgive is a decision. And I think you go through the process, and we can talk about that maybe on another show, what that process looks like based on the situation. But I think it's important to realize that you can forgive someone, and you do remember God gave us our memories for our protection, in part for our protection. So if I am forgiving a person, I think it's okay to put in safeguards, depending on the situation, that makes sure that not to make sure, but to try to protect yourself. And that don't mean that I'm not going to use that to weaponize, forgiveness in our relationship or you're wrong in our relationship, But I know that if someone has a challenge, and I hate giving scenarios because I give some of the best, some of the worst analogies. But if someone is horrible with money and I'm forgiving them for mismanaging money, I think I'll be somewhat of a fool just to keep on giving them uncontrolled, unchecked access to the funds in the relationship. We can put in safeguards, and I think it's right to put in safeguards in those instances.
Man, you guys are spot on. So again, tonight, y'all, and I'm going to give y'all my parting words, but I really hope that this saves some marriages. It encourages people to be honest with your own personal human experience, and that you're able to see people in real time that give their spouses the opportunity to feel what they feel, but then come together to rectify the situation. Because if you allow for each other to go on for so long disconnected, then that's what you're going to be. You're going to be disconnected. So forgiving 70 times 7, what that looks like is forgiveness, but also making sure that there is growth that comes with said forgiveness, and not just I'm going to give you this freely, but it's actually going to look like something and be like something. So one thing that I do want to just caveat is if you are in a relationship and there is some form of abuse, whether that's verbal, physically, sexually, mentally, whatever abuse it is not okay. This 70 times 7 does not mean that you need to change and exchange your cheek 70 times. What that means is I get to forgive this person so that it don't stay with me for the rest of my life, but I can turn my back and choose me and choose my life. And sometimes that looks like you forgiving you. And ways that you can do that is resources. M Green Enterprises, again, is here to really help you guys navigate these spaces so that you don't have to do it by yourself. And sometimes, because relationships is the most intimate way that we can be connected in this world, it takes other people and support to help you disconnect for those unhealthy relationships. So we were giving you guys an example of what a healthy relationship could look like and talking about those taboo topics. So if you are in a relationship where someone is abusing you and you want some support, please reach out to us, and we will make sure that you are connected to the right resources at the right time. We have ran out of time, guys. We have so much stuff coming up. So make sure y'all check the Floor is Yours podcast Facebook page. We'll make sure to drop all the flyers for things that's coming up. Real quickly, Saturday, we're doing the Be Well event here in Hampton Roads, Virginia, where we are giving away school supplies. We're also going to have a wellness fair and community fair in this thing. So there'll be real life therapists, life coaches, mental health supports. People are going to be doing eye exams. We're going to be giving away school supplies. So if you are in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, please make sure that you come out to the Portsmouth YMCA on High Street for Vision Driven 757. More things we have coming up is I have the Scripting Your Abundance Conference. Now, the cool part about this will be the first time that M Green Enterprises is actually going to be doing a live. And I don't know if we lost you guys or not. There we go. We're going to be giving you guys a live graduation. So if you have been looking to do the Metamorphosis experience, this is your turn to do it, because I'm going to be doing the first VIP room. So on Monday and Thursday, starting on the 29th, we'll be meeting together and you'll have a real live graduation at the Scripting Abundance Tour. And then the last piece of this is the John Carlos Run for Humanities. Furious Style is going to be over the entertainment. We also got Marcellus Carlos, shout out to Greenwood on the podcast. And we're going to be there just celebrating humanity here in the Hampton Roads area. So we know that was a lot. We want to respect you guys' time. Again, forgiveness is a choice, but you have to embrace the process that it takes for you to fully reach a level of forgiveness where you can reach happily ever after.
It's possible. It's possible. It's achievable. You just got to make the choice.
It takes two.
Understand. Yes.
Hey.
We're going to go ahead and hit that outro.
They the Royce new podcast, who want the smoke? Coming raw and uncut like who want this dope? Whatever you want, they for sure to cover the topic. From racial issues to fashion flies to cockpit. Y'all ain't never get it like this, cause they ain't never did it like this. We on our this the way the cookie crumbles for y'all. She gon' bring the inspiration to all. You know what's up with her. And this year manifesting is a vision. And y'all gon' love TJ cause he the realest. From the heart of a mob, they the start of it all. You looking for a Highland and holla at Gerard. The professor, nothing less coming at you with the lessons. Get your edge if you knowin' what's good for you. They educated, but they still keep it hood for you. Won't need another, this one here really do it for you. Baby, the for you, yeah, baby, I'm love for you. If it come down to love for you, let me show you how I love for you.
All right, y'all. We want to give a disclaimer. We are out in Suffolk, Virginia, and we got the hoodest internet ever. So we want to apologize for any glimpse and whatever. But again, make sure y'all like, share, subscribe. If you like what you heard tonight, please make sure you share it with your folks, because the Floor is Yours podcast is really here to make sure that we give a voice to all people so we can change the world one at a time. So we thank y'all, and we will see y'all in 2 weeks. And to Flex the producer, you the bomb biggity.
Peace.